Hello there. So you accidentally driven your wheeled barbecue into the side of your wife's car. Now this is the result. And this is apparently how you kind of fix it in about half an hour or so. Well, actually, given drying time was a bit longer. But anyway, here we go. This is what we got to do. This is how we're going to fix this. First job is going to be to make sure we can clean it. You can tell that it's a bad scratch because it's gone down to the actual metal work. You can see it's gone down to the metal work because it's got a colouring. You can do white edges where the primer was. There's a few scratches already on the car, but this one really sticks out, and I did it, so gotta fix that. Anyway, so yeah, if you put your fingernail on it, you can test and scratch it and you can feel it. So the first job is to give it a good old clean, some soapy water and a cloth that preferably isn't going to do more damage. So something soft, a microfiber type cloth will do you. So give it a quick clean. Proper good old rubbing. Make sure it's got no dirt in the surrounding area because you'll scratch that in. So I shouldn't have done this on a really sunny day, but unfortunately recording it is one of those things. Alright, okay, so the first step, our 2000 grit paper. There's another view for you. I do this throughout the video. The video on this little camera wasn't that great, so here's the old phone view. And the idea here is relatively simple. It's got a lot of jagged edges on this scratch. Imagine someone keyed your car. This is pretty much what's happened. So what we're doing here, the aim is to try and smooth off the edges. This is wet and dry paper, so I really should be using some water. So I'll get some water out in a minute and we'll carry on. You can use the soapy water that you're using to clean, that's fine. So stick some of that on there. Now you can tell whether or not you're going to need paint or not on a scratch, because if you wet it, the scratch will remain. If the scratch disappears, then you're alright. You should just be able to sort of use a compound to work the scratch and it should disappear, because that's just a clear coat scratch. Because these ones are deep, this is right down to the metal work, it's going to need some paint. So here we are, we're just trying to smooth over the edges of the actual scratch itself so that the paint can lay in it without leaving a kind of jagged edge. That's the goal anyway. I mean, this is the first time I've ever done this, so you'll have to bear with me as I learn how to do it, but the result's not too bad. It's passable, I suppose. For the age of the car, it's fine, I think. Right, so what we'll do is left and right mainly along the scratch, just trying to knock off any sharp edges that you can feel with a fingernail, or it will just generally feel with your fingernail. We'll see in a minute. I'll have another go. But yeah, slight up and down motion in places where it's really deep, just to make sure that we've got some sort of coverage there. That's what we need to do, is make sure we've really brought those edges down, and you're trying to make a trough rather than a cliff, if that makes sense, on the paint. So we'll spray it again, give it a bit of a wipe and my nose. Just check to make sure we haven't got any sort of ridges. If you can feel it on your fingernail, like your fingernails catching when you're rubbing over, then you've not done a good enough job and you need to go back and do some more. Now it does get worse before it gets better, so at this stage don't worry about it. What I should be doing is I should be using a sponge inside of the sandpaper, so that I get an even motion scratching as such. This is not right. This isn't the way to do it. If you're going to do it, then make sure you grab yourself something like a sponge to put inside, so you get a consistent scratching rather than pressure underneath each finger. So here's another view of it when it's dried off. So like I said, it looks worse before it gets better, so don't worry. But you can see when you add some water, those superficial scratches all disappear, so that's all fine. So we'll just clean off again. We'll make sure we get all in between every sanding stage. We want to make sure we clean off and make sure we get out any of the sandpaper that might have come off of the actual sandpaper, if that makes sense, and any of the additional kind of paint that you've scraped off. Anyway, so it looks really bad, but like I say, if you get it wet, then most of those scratches should just disappear. Now at this point we've got to make sure again that we can't catch our fingernail on anything. We're just going over it a bit more here to see. And once we're relatively happy with that and we think that we can move on, then it's time to move on. And moving on basically involves another sandpaper, and this one's 5000 grit. So they go in, obviously everybody knows, or they should know if they're going to do this, that sandpaper grits go from lower number to higher number depending on how wonderfully soft they get. This one's really soft. This is almost as close to paste as you can get, really. Again, it's wet and dry, so you can get it wet, and it's supposed to be used wet, so that's good. What you saw me there doing the reflection there is I've just put my towel inside of it there, and that's to reduce my pressure points of my fingers. Like I said before, you want to use a sponge really, if you can. The sponge will help distribute your pressure more than this solution is. So same sort of motion, we're just going backwards and forwards along the scratch. We go up and down ever so slightly in the really deep bits, just to make sure we are rounding it off nicely. You just don't want anything to catch on your fingernail at all when you put your finger over it. You don't want to be able to feel it. Well, you can feel it because obviously there's no paint under there, but you can't catch your fingernail on it. That's what you're looking for, really. I decided I should try and do something with those other scratches, but I didn't really pay attention to them, really. Anyway, so we'll carry on doing this. We'll just do a bit more, make sure we're doing as much as we can to try and get that smooth. Obviously, the rougher sandpaper we used before, that we need to make sure that that's if you like, getting less harsh, and this is the whole point of this. Your area gets bigger and bigger the more you work. So you start off with a harsh sandpaper, and then that's quite coarse and leaves quite coarse indentations in the actual existing paintwork. You want to minimize that as much as possible, really. You'll see that now once this dries off, the actual area that I've worked is a lot wider. Here you go, see, look. So it's a lot wider than the initial scratch. Probably a bit too wide, to be honest, but that's okay because it's still on the clear coat. We're not going through the clear coat to the primer. So we've sand down, make sure we clean off, make sure we're happy that everything's as smooth and as it can be. It needs a little bit more, I think, here, so I forego the rag that I'm using as such. What I do is I fold over the paper multiple times, just to give me a round edge, and I'm trying for a round edge, not a sharp edge. So now I'm going in a circular motion. It's important to start doing circular motions at some point, because apparently then that way when it comes to buffing out, it's easier to get rid of those swirl marks that you're going to be leaving. Again, I'm trying to keep consistent pressure, but it's not particularly easy when you don't have anything in your paper and the paper's all wet and you just have to carry on with it, really. So this is almost to the point where it's done now, and we're ready ourselves for some touch-up paint. I'm just making sure everything's wet, just off camera there. Again, a few little circular motions. Okay, so a bit quick clean down, check where we're at, make sure I don't spray the camera. Not the best quality camera footage, I'm afraid, sorry, but unfortunately you can't really tell, can you, while you're doing it. As you can tell, I'm sort of sat in the sun, which you shouldn't really do when doing this job. If you're going to do this job yourself, then make sure you're sitting in a shaded area. It doesn't out of direct sunlight, make sure the paintwork's not hot, all the normal kind of advice that they give you when you're trying to do things something like this. I didn't follow it, I couldn't do, I had to film it, so it's important to have some light when you're filming things, and unfortunately it was slightly out of focus, so you have my apologies, but it is what it is, and I'm not going to be able to do it again. Right, so just really making sure that we got everything off. We want to really make sure everything's out of the scratch, off the paintwork. Like I said before, it looks worse now than it did when it started, so but don't panic. Another final test to make sure we haven't got anything drastically wrong. Get my phone out and show you properly. Push the button, there we go. So here we go, so it's all a bit matte as such, relatively consistent. A few of the swirls not really great, some of the scratches are a bit pronounced, but we'll survive. Here's the colour match. Now this stuff I got off of Amazon. You send them your registration number and they match the paint. It's not a bad match. It looks bad. You'll see in a moment. But yeah, it's just literally a case of you paint it on, make thin layers, as thin as you can possibly get away with, depending on the amount of time you've got. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm kind of trying to rush through this. Well, I live in the UK, so sunshine is a rare thing. As you can see in the background, the clouds are already coming over. So we're putting on a thin layer of paint here, just trying to make sure that we get it into that scratch. We don't want to put it on too thickly, because obviously the more thick it is, the more work you've got to take it off. And we are going to be taking it off. That's the game here. This isn't just stick it on and polish over it. This is the case of we want to fill the scratch itself with the paint, and then we want to apply multiple layers really to build up that paint. So make sure we shake the stuff. And I'll show you what it looks like. So this is what it looks like to the normal eye as such. So you can see that you can still see sort of through it into the scratch. Where it wasn't so deep isn't so pronounced, but to the right hand side of the scratch itself. It's quite deep. So yeah, we'll have to leave that to dry now. Time for a coffee. I've had my cup of coffee. I've come back again, and now I'm going back with a second coat. Again, I'm just trying to put it on. You can dab it on as thick if you like. If you really fancy, then go for it. But you'll be there sometimes scratching it off again with your sandpaper afterwards. And that is going to be the next step. Once you've got your paint in and it's all set up, then it doesn't take very long. It's automotive paint, and this scratch paint takes about sort of 15 to half an hour, I suppose, 15 minutes to half hour, depending on the environment really. So this isn't too bad. This was stuff. It dried super quick. I was surprised how quick it was drying, to be honest. I think it didn't help that I was sat there in the sunshine, so don't do that. Make sure you do it in a shaded area. Dry but shaded is probably best. Kind of ambient temperatures. I don't think you want to be around the 20 odd degrees if you can avoid it, but that's centigrade, that is. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. You'd have to Google that, I'm afraid. I think it's in the 70s, 71, 72, maybe. But yeah, you don't have to be sort of perfect with it. You can tell that I'm not. I'll just show you now what it looks like. So you can see it sort of looks like it's a different colour. And to be fair, the car is I'm not sure how many years old, but it's got to be at least 10 years old, I would imagine. So, and this is on the rear quarter, above the rear wheel, so it's had a few years of road mileage and sun bleaching. So here we are, we're back with our wet and dry sandpaper again. This is the 5000 again, and all we're doing is we're trying to just smooth off those rough sort of looking edges of the paint. I've got my rag back in there to give myself some consistent pressure, and you'll see I start going in very small circles. It's a bit hard on the camera to make out, but I do get to making small circles. I'm going clockwise and anti-clockwise. Make sure it stays lubricated with some soapy water. I'm not spraying directly on at the moment. It's just had the paint applied really. It's only sort of half hour old. I've had a cup of coffee and I've sorted the washing out and that sort of thing, and now I'm back to sand it down. So you don't have to press hard, you don't have to go mad, you just have to be consistent really. It looks like I'm stabbing at it, but I'm not. I'm just literally going in circles. Now with a cleanish bit of cloth, I'm just smoothing it over to see if there's any change in my world. It's looking a bit better. It's certainly not a scratch anymore, is it? It's more of a funny looking paint splodge. So we'll carry on with our sanding for a little while. We've got to do up to the right there to the rest of the scratch. And you can feel it underneath the sandpaper to a degree when you've made it smooth. You can feel the ripples of the paint while you're actually doing it. It's a bit hard to explain how it feels, but yeah, it's kind of like a little bit catchy. You can hear it to a degree as well, so keep your ears out for that. I mean, you won't hear it on the recording, but you can hear it when you're doing it. So just sort of circular motions now, proper getting into my circles, look. I do wonder if everybody's head bobbles like that when they're doing this sort of thing, but like I say, I don't do it every day. This is the first time I've tried this. Give a bit quick clean off, see if we've made any progress. Now I don't know if you can see there or not, but on the larger scratch area and the deeper and the far left, these little patches started appearing. I'm not sure what that is. I think that's like where something's over. I mean, this was done ages ago, this scratch, so it's been sat there for don't know how many months before I've got around to actually doing anything about it. So I think what's happened is something's got underneath the layers of lacquer or top coat or whatever, clear coat, whatever you want to call it, and I think I'm just accentuating that, if you see what I mean, with the work that I'm doing here, and it actually ends up in the final result, but it is what it is. You still can't see bare metal now, so it's got better. I'll get my phone out and I'll show you. But this is where I decided actually this needs another little bit of a coat. So I put some more paint on, and I don't know if you should do that or you shouldn't do that. I'm not really sure. I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments eventually, but not that it'll make any difference because the job's done now. I'm not going to do anything else to it, I don't think. But yeah, so I put some more paint on and decided to go and have another cup of coffee. This is what it looked like after I finished putting that bit of paint on. You can see it goes on a different colour, and then as it dries it changes the colour to sort of semi-match the car paintwork. Interesting stuff. But yeah, you can see some sort of edges, like the actual scratch wasn't that big in places, and yet you can see where I've painted it. So that'll have to have a bit more sanding. But also, before I put the paint on there that last time, then you could still ever so slightly make out a different shade, like a darker shade underneath the paintwork. So again, you can see this is how I did my folding up. So I put my rag down on my knee, and I folded it in half, and then I rolled it sort of up, so it's like a roll, and then I wrapped the paper itself around that roll. Apply liberal amounts of water in both paintwork and the roll, and then have at it again. So this is going to be like the final time that I do this, so I'm focusing on making the edges disappear effectively. Ideally I'd like the scratch still there, but just a different colour. That's what I'm aiming for, because I can't do anything with the colour that I've got, but I can do something about, how well it blends in. So I'm just going to go through this whole sanding procedure again with the small circles. I'm going both clockwise and anti-clockwise. I need to make sure that I've sort of consistently scratched, as that makes sense. Try not to apply too much pressure. I just want to knock the edges off of the paint. I don't want to be tearing it out of the scratch, sorry, and I don't want to be, I don't know, going through it and leaving the scratch. So just sort of various pressures really. It's important to keep checking. You've got to keep checking to make sure that you can't, or you're getting the result you want really. By no means I'm not professional at this. I've not got any experience doing it. I've literally just watched a couple of YouTube channels, read a bit online, asked a few people about products, and here we are. I think it's important to do these things yourself if you can. I could pay someone to come and fix it, but like I say, the car's relatively old now. We don't actually use it. It just sits on the drive. And like I said before at the start of the video, it was my own fault. I drove our barbecue on wheels into the side of it as I was trying to put it away. So it is what it is, you know. But hopefully watching this, it's given someone some inspiration maybe. This is a metallic paint, so I was really expecting it not to go well at all. I think here you can just about make out that it's going to be as good as it's going to get really, because it's obviously when it's wet you can't see the light scratching. Just checking there with my finger to see if I can feel the paint above the rest of the paint, which wasn't really the case. A bit concerned about those patches now that you can see sort of creeping. Well, not creeping, but they're not great. Again, it's really important to make sure that you keep the paint dry after, well, not dry but clean after each sort of stage, because if you have any grit, I mean if you put your cloth down on the ground and you pick up a little bit of a stone, then you're just going to make your wall work for yourself. Anyway, here's what it looks like. So you can see like the top right hand side is kind of rounded and that bottom bit has got a round look to it, and that's not really what I was looking for. I was hoping for a bit more of a, I don't know, less blobby, if that makes sense. So I went back again with the 5000 wet and dry sandpaper and just see if I can knock that down a bit more. Remember, that's on top of clear coat, which is obviously on top of paint, which is on top of primer, which is on top of the metal itself. So it doesn't need to be like teardropped. It should really be sort of the same shape as the original scratch was. But you know, best laid plans and all that. So I have another go at it, trying to knock some more off. Quick clean off again. Check where we are. Alright, so at this point I see those patches. So you can see on the right hand side blobbers, the right hand side scratch, the deep one, you've got those kind of, it's like directly underneath in the middle. It's not so obvious now, but it's a discoloration of some description. It's almost like something has got in behind the lacquer and is somehow leached itself between the layers. I don't know. So you can sort of see a darkness. It's like almost like an oil stain, but it's under both of those scratches, the big one and both the little one on the left. Anyway, so this is the final step now. This is the polishing compound. It's not polishing, it's scratch removal compound. Again, off of eBay. Not eBay, Amazon. You could probably get it off of eBay, but I got it off of Amazon. And it's just a paste. It's almost, it is a sort of sandpaper, but in paste format. And it's designed to remove light scratches, and all of that large area around the scratch that we've done with the sandpaper, that's classed as a light scratch because it is really, really shallow because of the 5000 sandpaper, and it's only in the clear coat, so this should really pull it out and get rid of that. Again, we're doing small circles. The reason you do small circles, I'm told, is because if you go in one direction, up or down or left or right or whatever, then the light will refract off of it differently than if you go in circles, which you'll still see scratches. So in circles, then you don't see it. But yeah, you can definitely see now those patches underneath both of the larger scratches, and I'm not sure what it is that caused that. But they don't go, they stay. So I've made a decision at this point that it's pretty much a no-brainer. I'm not going to be trying to get rid of those. I think I can live with those. That's much better than the scratch that we had. So it's just a case of buffing up now really. I think a couple of applications of this compound and it should be good. You can definitely see a reflection in it. I'll show you with the phone here. Here you go, see, so you can see that discoloration there. Not sure why that is. If someone does, then please let me know, and if it's something I can fix. If not, then not really worried about it. But isn't that much better than that big scratch? I mean, if you're going to get that close to the car, then you're going to see it, aren't you? But generally, if you're a bit further away, you don't really see it. Just don't understand why it discoloured like that, really. At this point I can't actually see because the sun's shining on my phone, so I'm just kind of waving the phone around in the hope that I'm catching something worth watching. I'll change position now just to see from another angle, but you can see there's those two patches still, but the actual scratch itself is pretty much gone, or not gone, but well covered. One last rubbing with the compound across everything and we'll be done. Some quick after shots, and I will bid you thank you very much for watching. I hope this has given you the encouragement to try this yourself. It's not something that's that daunting really. It's a little bit time consuming. I suppose the whole process took an hour and 15 minutes, I suppose, because I didn't really let the paint set for too long. Apparently you should avoid waxing your car after you've done this, but or at least for a few days, up to a couple of weeks or whatever. But we never wax this car, let alone wash it, so this is the cleanest point on the car. But yeah, there we go. We can see that the scratch has gone. It's not that bad. It's not that noticeable really. If you, like I say, unless you're up close like I am there, you don't really make those patches out. It's definitely better than the scratch. So yeah, give it a go. Try it out for yourself. It's easy really. Couple of pictures. And I'll say goodbye. Bye.